Hello? Okay, hey guys, so it's me, Alexis, and this is just a really random video just to, address some of the questions that I've been getting a lot on my blog. And I get this kind of question quite often on my blog because I'm always getting questions from beginners. The question that I constantly get is, how do you find your planets in the houses? Or how do you know which signs are ruling my houses? Like, where do I find this? Where do I find that? How do I do all of this? Well, this video is going to help you answer that in a completely visual way. I highly recommend that when you first learn astrology, you have to look at your natal chart and see it as a circular chart. Because when I first learned astrology, I made the mistake of going on Cafe Astrology first and looking at the tables, not really conceptualizing how the houses and planets and all the things tied together until I looked at an actual natal chart and I was like, oh, this makes sense in a visual way. And I kind of wanted to make this video because whenever I get questions from people like this, they always, like, the questions are always really long because when you try to explain something visually, it gets really confusing, and this is just something that I want to clear up before, there's a lot of confusion. So, yeah, if you don't know where your houses are, if you don't know what signs are ruling it, you don't know how to find where your planets are or like aspects or anything like that, this is the video for you. And while I'm at it, I do not recommend looking on Cafe Astrology first. I just recommend astro.com and just looking at the natal chart as it is so that you can learn to read it from the actual chart itself so you can actually see how everything works out. So just gotta make that clear. So yeah, without further ado, I'm just gonna tell you some key points. So in astrology, we have 4 basic building blocks. We have the signs, planets, houses, and aspects. I'm going to show you guys how these 4 aspects, how these 4 components are represented in your natal chart. So let's just start with the signs. So as you can see here on the natal chart, you have all these different kinds of glyphs. These glyphs represent the signs, okay? So the AC represents all the signs are presented in a chronological order. So this means that you're not going to have any signs skipping over. Like, you're not going to find Pisces here and then find Aries like all the way over here. No, all the signs are always going to be in astrological order. So it's a really good idea to actually memorize the order because it's going to help you a lot when it comes to archetypes and all of that, but enough about that. So all the signs are represented by these glyphs right here. It's best to memorize these glyphs just for your convenience, so just remember that these signs are always in order. Now, next up, the planets. So, when you're trying to find your planets in the houses, you're going to find these glyphs right here within the chart. So, this is the sign glyph, and this is a planet glyph. Specifically, this is Aries, and this is Saturn. Okay, so you'll find your signs on this outer layer, and then you'll find your planets in this inner layer. So in this inner layer, you will find that all of your planets are located here, and then from there you can see which houses the planets are in. So let's just look at Pluto, for example. So Pluto is represented right here, and if you want to know what house Pluto is in, you got to go down to the house number and see where the planet is. So in this case, Pluto is in the 9th house, okay? The moon, in this case, is in the 3rd house. So that's how you find your planetary placements in your natal chart. So how do you figure out which signs are ruling the houses? So in order to rule a house, a sign has to be touching the cusp or the start of a house. So the natal chart actually starts right here. When I first learned astrology, I always thought it was kind of weird that like the chart started here because I always thought it would start right here. But your natal chart starts right here, the middle left of your chart. And it always starts with the ascendant. So when you want to find out which signs are ruling your houses, you would go to the start of the 1st house, which is right here, and you would look at the glyph that's touching it. And in this case, we have Pisces. So the first house is ruled by Pisces because the start of the first house, like this starting line right here, this line right here, is touching the Pisces glyph. And the Pisces glyph goes from here to here. All the signs are divided into these equally sized amounts throughout the chart. The signs are always going to be 30 degrees, and in Placidus, which is the system I'm currently using, the houses, as you can see, are unequal. So depending on which house systems you're using, if you want to find out which signs are ruling the houses, always be sure to look at the start of the houses. So the first house, it'd be right here. For the second house, it would be right here. Third house, right here. So this is incredibly helpful when you're trying to find interceptions, because if you find a sign ruling more than one house, which is called a duplication, you can be pretty sure that there's an interception somewhere in this chart. So we're just going to go through this whole chart and see if this random person has any interceptions, just for practice. So let's go. So the first house, like I said, is ruled by Pisces. Okay. The second house is ruled by Aries. You can see this because the start of the second house is touching the Aries glyph. So the second house is ruled by Aries. Moving on to the third house. This is the starting line for the third house. Go down, you will see the Taurus glyph. So therefore, Taurus is ruled by the third house. Now, we're going to go down this thick line called the IC, or Ainam Cole. I hope that's how you pronounce it. And you'll find Gemini, fifth house, Cancer, sixth house, Leo. And I'm just going to stop. And you're probably wondering, why are you stopping at the sixth house? We're only halfway there. I thought we were going to look for all the interceptions in our houses. Well, let me tell you this. The chart is symmetrical according to the opposing houses. So do you notice how the first house is the same size as the seventh house? So if you notice, the first and seventh house are the same size. The second and the eighth house are the same size. And the third and the ninth house are the same size, and so on. With that being said, the natal chart is symmetrical. So a pro tip, quote unquote, is that to find interceptions pretty quickly, be sure to go through the first 6 houses, and if all the houses are ruled by a different sign, then you probably don't have any interceptions at all. Actually, I'm pretty sure you don't have interceptions because the chart is symmetrical. So yeah, last part is the aspects. So you're probably wondering, how do I find my aspects? Like, hello, how do they work? Well, here it is. So these random lines that you see between the planetary glyphs are called aspects. So if I remember correctly, the blue lines are harmonious aspects, while the red ones are disharmonious. And this light green special one is, I believe, in conjunction. It's a minor aspect. Well, most people would consider it a major aspect nowadays, but you know, that's up in the air. But moral of the story, this light green line is it's in conjunction. But basically, these are the aspects that you see between each of your planets. If these lines are too overwhelming for you, you can go down to this table and voila, you'll see all of your aspects completely lined up nicely and conveniently for you in this nice little table. So let's look for one. So let's see. So we have the sun trine to the moon. So we have the sun, and here's the moon. And make that little line all the way down to the moon. So that's the trine aspect that you see in this table. So if you have trouble seeing all the aspects at first right here, it's best to look down at this table and be like, oh, okay, that's where the aspect is. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this video. I hope this video helped you guys out looking at your natal chart in a visual way. Again, I highly recommend looking at your natal chart first when you're first starting out in astrology, because you're gonna see a lot of concepts that will build up from visually looking at the natal chart. Plus, it's just for really good practice. However, if you have a lot of trouble, it's perfectly fine to use a birth chart reading calculator that kind of shows you all the rulerships and stuff. I use it myself just because I'm lazy, but yeah, if you really want to be, you know, really into astrology and you kind of want to have a solid base, the best way is to look at your natal chart as it is right here. It may look kind of funky But if you sit down and you kind of learn each part piece by piece, you're going to be fine. So yeah. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video helped you guys.